Alright, so one of the things you guys should do is go to SSA.gov and register. Just to make sure that
the
government knows that you're paying taxes. So when it comes time to pulling out money for Social Security, that have reported how much for all your taxes. When you pay taxes, you're paying Social Security. Yeah, so what you get is obviously amount of so sometimes it doesn't go through. You're working to file.
Hey, there's one viewer.
So you want to check and make sure. Also because
It's right side up.
don't show you. So
You view it, it's right side up.
So it's good.
Look right here.
Oh yeah. Hey, it flipped. We're good.
It flips when you view it. It's right side up.
Can you?
Hey, go back to that. Go back to like. Is that better?
You might have to just turn off one.
You don't also have to do that.
I think that's fine.
Can a credit score be negative?
You're on camera as you say this.
Okay, but not negative, right? I'm just wondering. I don't know.
Kim Squad. Video journal of the day. Today I went to work and now I'm. There's a viewer? Oh. Is there really a viewer?
Hey, that looks better, right?
Literally. Oh.
Oh yeah, that's good. Dude, boy, you need all of that.
I took a lot from you. Alright,
Let's start in 5 minutes. Yeah? 5 minutes?
Alright, so this is kind of a good rule of thumb for budgeting. Like 50% towards like things needs like rent, bills, whatever. 20% to like save your goals, like retirement, vacation, engagement ring, whatever. And then 30% like this. But because we're Catholic, you should 10% should come from however you want or kind of donations. The rest should never be more than 40%.
It should never be more than 40%?
It should not be.
This is why I have no money saved.
So it's different ways to one of them is that whole method where you pull out the cash that you're going to use for the week and you put it in different. There's a lot of apps and stuff. And when it comes to paying on automatic, automatic is like setting up like automatic, like from your checking account. Whatever, or your bills or whatever.
If you don't got the neighborhood.
Are you viewing right now? We have a viewer! Oh, no. The viewer left.
Welcome to my finance class.
Well, I mean, we're not even. But I said that earlier today.
Welcome to the 21st century. Is this recording right now? Anyone? Is this recording right now? Huh? Hello? Hello? Alex, is this recording right now?
Hey.
So like, what about the year? Like, like every year. Testing.
There's no good time. Turn it down a little bit. It should be consistent based on the market. Yes. Yeah, like you said, that's yeah.
Testing.
This is fun. Guys, you turn it down.
Testing.
You can turn it down. Turn it down.
The volume.
Testing, but why would we turn it down?
Because they're saying they can on live stream. That's what you said. Who's streaming? You guys are streaming it.
Seriously? Michael is here.
Oh.
Testing. Testing sound.
What if I just sit here and you probably hear me, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I'd rather not talking to the mic. Just 12 people here.
yes, that's what it says.
Okay. Oh, we're good?
That's the left.
Oh, dude, you made it! My fiance came.
Oh, there's
Yes.
there's the Ferrari.
Oh, look. Provided by your. Gosh, she's hot. If you're sitting here, you just have to be really. Okay. I'm not planning on talking. It's that baby. Oh God.
All right, I'm gonna start since 7:10 almost.
You guys start now.
All right, so this is my contact info. Obviously, like we all know each other, and you guys probably haven't picked out, but if you have any questions afterwards, feel free to email me. I'm leaving for Italy and then New York in like a week, so I won't be here. But I also just wanted to say a couple things because I'm not like a financial professional, right? I'm just an average person, just like you. And the reason why I want to do this class is because if you go to a lot of people, one, they're going to charge you a lot of money, and oftentimes they don't have your best interest in mind. So I'm here just, because I want people to be aware of, how do I get to retirement? How do I make $1 million by only putting in $400 a month? And how is that realistic? Because it is. You really can't put in $400 a month. And over 40 years, even though you only put in $200,000, if you invested it correctly, you're likely to have around $1.3, $1.4 million from a $200,000 investment. Which is pretty amazing if you think about it, because if you take that to a casino, if you give someone $1 and get $5 back, almost guaranteed, you would do it every single time. And you do that with $200,000 over 40 years, and you get $1.3 million. That's pretty amazing. So, just out of curiosity, I just want to kind of pick your guys' brain and just see what you guys really want to know and what you guys want to get away from this class, because I don't want to cover topics that you guys already know or you don't want to hear about. And I'm just interested, does anyone have anything that they really want to know about when it comes to personal finance, whether it be personal investments, budgeting, credit cards, or anything? Yeah.
You're gonna be on the spot. Like how to pay off, get out of debt while paying bills and budget.
Yeah.
What falls under personal finance?
So there's a lot that falls under personal finance, right? It could come down to your individual taxes that you have to pay every single year when it comes to work, how to file those deductions, which I won't cover that much because I'm not a CPA. Tax laws just changed this year. Also, obviously your personal budget, Your individual retirement accounts falls under personal finance. Those are kind of the big ticket things that fall under personal finance. Really, just how you spend your money on a day-to-day basis, how you save, pay your bills. Anything else?
I want to learn how I can travel as much as I can and still be smart about my future.
Okay. Got it. What else? Yeah.
Just like along the topic of budgeting,
Uh-huh.
just like specifically handling like the miscellaneous things that like don't fall under a category. They're
Okay.
just kind of like,
Yeah.
I call that my slush fund, but like I shouldn't, I don't know.
You should have talk about kind of like a slush fund that you should consider when you're planning your budget. Talk about that.
Retirement and investing.
Okay. So we will cover retirement.
What about investing?
Investing too, because that goes hand in hand. All right. So those are a lot of the things that we'll cover. Anything else? Oh well.
How I can buy a house by the time I'm 35.
We can kind of talk about that. Broadly speaking, hopefully this will cover some of those topics. I'll talk a little bit about saving for mortgage down payment, but it kind of really ties into how you budget your day to day, and that really that's it. And then, so at the end of the day, I want to show you this because this is one of the last slides. This is I think the last slide I'm going to show you. But this is kind of the key takeaway. If you give one person sound financial advice, this is what someone should give you. We call it like an index card of like what you should know about your personal finances. And if there is anything, I was talking to like if there's anything you understand on this thing like fees or fiduciaries, like you should kind of dig into it a little bit more and try to understand. Hopefully by the end of this class you'll have a better understanding of what's on this slide and how it impacts your future. Okay. Yeah, we'll come back to this, but this is kind of just a general snapshot. Hopefully, this is what you take away from, or understanding this will something you hopefully take away from. So just a little bit of expectation management. I'm not here to make you guys like Warren Buffett, like a baller trillionaire. Like that's not why I'm here, obviously. I'm here to really just give you tools because I don't expect you guys to like go out tomorrow. Like it's not like post retreat and like suddenly like you're like revived and like an amazing Christian the next day after retreat. This is not that class for you. This is just really I just want to give you the tools so that you can go out and maybe be a little more interested and talk to your friends, your peers, your family about how to live responsibly in your financial life. And I just want to give you those tools and just the fact that if you're interested and you do your own research is really when you're going to learn the most about how to manage your finances. It's not going to come from anyone like me telling you how to be responsible when it comes to that. The first thing I'm going to cover briefly is just your credit, because I don't think people really know what credit scores are, except for maybe a 3-digit number that you get when you're going to buy a car. Before I do that, I do encourage you guys to go to ssa.gov and create a Social Security account. And this simply just so that and you're confident that the government is tracking your tax returns and how much you're putting into Social Security, because that will impact kind of your retirement later on if Social Security is still around. Also, if you regularly review statements, you can catch things like identity fraud, identity theft, activity that might not be your own. So, like for example, someone files a tax return under your Social Security number, that's a problem. You're now a victim of identity fraud. So credit score, what it really comes down to is who's willing to lend you money. It really affects, when you buy a car, or when you're buying a house, and it really is important to manage your credit score and kind of take care of it. So who reviews your credit? Like employers, landlords, and even when you're trying to rent an apartment, they care about your credit score. Like I said, automotive dealers, professional licensing boards sometimes care about your credit score. Insurance companies, lenders. So credit can save or cost you a lot of money, right? So I know it's hard to read right here, but if your score is around 7, you're trying to take out a 30-year fixed rate loan, for a house of $750,000. If your FICO score is, or your credit score is 760 to 850, you're gonna make monthly payments of $3,500 and total interest paid of $527,000. It's a lot, right? But if your FICO score is at 620 or 629, your interest rate is gonna go up to 5.5%, and then you're gonna pay a total interest of almost $800,000. If you go online and just search, you just search like mortgage calculator on Google, it'll come up. You can kind of just play with it.
How is a credit score affected? Like, what makes it go higher? What makes it go lower? I wasn't planning.
So I'm gonna cut it. I'm gonna go, yeah, real quick. Okay, we can talk about it right now. What's your credit score made up of, right? So it's made up of a lot of things. It's made up of kind of your credit mix. So basically, what kind of credit do you have? You have credit cards, you have mortgages, student loans, car payments, whatever. How often do you pursue new credit? How often are you looking to apply for loans, apply for new credit cards? How long is your credit history? Is it only 2 years old? Have you only had a credit card for a couple of years? And that a lot of things make sense, right? Like that length of credit history comes up.
I heard it's supposed to have a lot of credit cards that too.
Yes and no. I don't think you should have more credit cards than you need. It might help your credit score, but very, very minimally. The biggest things that are going to help your credit score is just taking out a large loan. It's going to really help, and making payments regularly on that. We're having a very long credit score history, and we talk a little bit more about how to improve your score. Outstanding debt. So you're going to have the total amount of credit is going to be assigned to you, right? So you know how when you get a credit card, you have a limit of like $2,500, right? And maybe it's $25,000, and they're going to basically score you on how much of that credit you have on balance, on a monthly basis, and that's part of your score as well. And that's obviously a huge part of your score because they want to know how much of that credit that you're being offered that you're utilizing month to month. And then your payment history is huge. So if you miss a payment, it's going to drop your score significantly, especially if you have a high score. And for a personal example, my score was like just over 800. I missed a payment and it went down to 700. So
there's like a grace period though, right?
There is a grace period. So a lot of credit card companies won't report you for a missed payment for like 2 months. They say 1 month, like missed payment, but usually 2 months is kind of different. But yeah, it's a lot to keep track of. So what is your credit score? Yeah, it's a summary of what I just told you, right? And it's a 3-digit number that ranges from 300 to 850. 850 being the highest. If you're anywhere, it's as a young adult, around the mid 700s, you're like very good. You're doing very well for yourself, and you'll be able to get the best interest rate possible. Typically, when you're applying for a loan. And what ultimately your credit score is a forecast of how willing that. Basically, how willing you are. Basically, how likely you to pay whatever we offer you in the next 24 months. That's kind of what a credit score is. The higher credit scores, better. Okay, so I would say without having to pay money, so a lot of your credit cards that you have or your banks will give you a free credit score estimate, but it's not going to give you your actual score. The best thing you can do to take care of your credit is you go to annualcreditreport.com. You can pull your credit from the 3 different credit bureaus once a year for free. So if you time it right, if you space it out, you pull your credit report every 4 months from a different credit bureau. That it won't give you a score, but it'll show you if you missed a payment or not, or if someone opened an account maybe under your name. As long as you take care of that, that's almost everything that you can control when it comes to you. You don't really need to. I wouldn't worry about looking at your credit score day to day because there's almost nothing you can do to drastically affect your credit score one direction or the other, except for missing a payment or things like that. I would be careful of websites like Credit Karma or like freecreditreport.com. Do you remember like Super Bowl, like freecreditreport.com? Even though they had a Super Bowl ad, they got in a huge, so you think they're reputable, they got in a huge lawsuit because they're doing a lot of false advertising. They're offering people like free credit reports. People are having to pay like $20 and all sorts of shady stuff. So like I said, the best thing you can do is just utilize the banks you have already. They might, if you contact them, maybe they offer a credit card that you can sign up for where they provide you credit score. Or like I said, the best thing you can do is just go to annualcreditreport.com, pull your credit once every 4 months, and then just make sure that you're paying all your payments on time and you're not delinquent. Like I said, there's not much you can do to drastically improve your score one way or the other.
When you do the annual credit that you just said, is it a soft credit pull or?
It's a soft pull. It will not affect your credit score. Yeah, so it's a soft pull. And it'll show you everything. It'll show you like 3 years of your credit card payments, whether you paid on time. It'll show you how much of your, what your rotating balance is, so the average balance you have every single month. So it tells you enough so that you can take care of your credit score. This is just a funny video that I found on SNL.
I just can't get these numbers to add up.
Like we're never gonna get out of this hole.
Credit card debt, does it ever end?
Maybe I can help. We sure could use it.
We've tried debt consolidation.
We've even taken out loans to help make payments. You're not the only one. Did you know millions of Americans live with debt they cannot control? That's why I developed this unique new program for managing your debt. It's called Don't Buy Stuff You Cannot Afford.
Let me see that. If you don't have any money, you should not buy anything.
It's not a you thing.
Well, honey, it makes a lot of sense. There's a whole section here on how to buy expensive things using money you save.
Do that. And where would you get this saved money? I tell you where and how in chapter 3.
Okay, so what if I want something but I don't have any money?
You don't buy it. Well, let's say I don't have enough money to buy something. Should I buy it anyway? No. Now I'm really confused. It's a little confusing.
Well, what if you have the money? So you buy something?
Yes.
Now take the money away. Same story?
Nope. You shouldn't buy stuff when you don't have the money. I think I got it. I buy something I want and then hope that I can pay for it, right? No. You make sure you have money, then you buy it. Oh, then you buy it. But shouldn't you buy it before you have the money? No.
Why not?
It's in the book. It's only one page long. The advice is priceless and the book is free.
Wow, I like the sound of that.
Yeah, we can put it on our credit card. So get out of debt now. Run for your free copy of Don't Buy Stuff You Cannot Afford. If you order now, you'll also receive series. If you don't have money, don't buy it. Stop buying stuff now. Support it today.
Yeah, that's pretty much a summary of budgeting, right? Just don't buy things you don't have the money for. And so that kind of naturally leads on to talk about credit scores. Naturally, people are curious about credit cards. You click on an Urban Dictionary to see what it says. Buying something you don't need at a price you can't afford with money you don't have. A lot of people get trapped. It's funny, but a lot of people get trapped by credit card debt because they don't understand how interest rates work. Because they want something really bad and they can have it. It's easy to swipe. So yeah, it's food for thought. But there's a lot of credit cards out there, right? And there's a lot of opportunity out there. You hear about people getting a lot of cash back and all that stuff. The bottom line is that you don't spend money that you don't have. You treat your credit card as like a debit card. So if you're going to use a credit card, you should pay it off in full every single month. And that's kind of all that advice you need when it comes to credit cards. If you can't get past that, then there's no reason for you to be talking about getting points, getting free airline tickets, because it's not worth it at that point. You're going to end up paying way more in interest than you would anything else. Like, for example, my dad got a random tablet from this Korean store because they said it was going to be free, but they're charging us $20 a month for data usage, right? So it's not really that free. That's kind of how these companies get you, and that's how the big way they make money from consumers who are ill-informed. So yeah, but if you are curious about credit cards, I can teach another class probably for like 2 hours about how to maximize credit cards and credit card points.
I have two questions. One is about credit cards. You know how you can transfer whatever amount you have to another credit card? Is that smart to do?
So yes and no. And I say no. I say no because either way you're going to accrue interest. It doesn't really matter. However, if let's say you now suddenly the light bulb is hit and you understand credit cards, and you can sign up for a credit card where they offer 0% APR for 6 months. And if that gives you enough time to pay off that balance, then go for it. But if it's just going to give you another credit card where you can spend more money, then absolutely don't do it, because it is going to affect your credit. It's just going to make it worse if you open another card, make a bigger balance, and then just not pay it off.
Another question. Car mortgages, or sorry, car
loans.
Refinancing. Is that smart? Is that something we should be doing, or is it like?
It's hard to say because you have to do the math on it. Yes. So let's say you took out a 24-month car loan and they offer you to refinance and lower your payments of $400 to $300. It's probably because you have to pay 24 months. If you want to pay, you're going to end up paying more in interest than you would have if you just paid 24 months. Maybe your original car loan was 20% interest and someone offered you 1% interest. Probably you should refinance. But those, in that case, it's probably very small and unlikely that would happen.
One more question. This is from our online streamer.
Okay.
How, and you might touch this later, you could touch it later, but how would you budget with a spouse? Is there a program you can use to see how much we are spending? Like some type of graph or something. I feel like it's difficult at times to budget with someone, especially when you budget it on your own for so long.
That's kind of tough. So it really depends on the individual, right? So when it comes to budgeting, you got to use something that, especially as a couple, it comes down to what you're both going to use. Maybe one person's comfortable with Excel, maybe another person's comfortable with an app. Is another or either willing to sacrifice their comfort to switch onto one single platform? And that's kind of the biggest thing. There's so many apps out there. And I'm going to go over, there's going to be a list of different apps for budgeting that come up, but it really just comes down to picking something and just sticking with it. And there's a ton of apps, and I will cover it shortly. I'll try to remember to get that again when it comes up. So quick tips, just to wrap up this kind of section, annualcreditreport.com, get a free copy report, stagger reports like I said, so once every 4 months, pull a new report, utilize those free resources maybe that your bank has and this website. Don't go to freecreditreport.com, Credit Karma, or any of the other stuff, because it's very easy to get sucked into like their little tricks and scams, because they gotta make a living too, and that they gotta make money too. So just always keep that in the back of your head. And credit cards are a double-edged sword, right? They help you build credit. They could be good for your credit score. They have rewards, but if you don't use it right, they can very quickly destroy your credit. And it's really, really hard to build your credit score from being poor to being good. It takes a really long time. So financial planning. It's funny because I saw this as a joke, but budgeting is kind of like the flossing of financial planning, right? Like, if you look at this meme, like, I don't always floss, but when I do, I have a dentist appointment in 2 days. So, like, when it comes to budgeting, like, some people are like, oh, I got a budget now that I have to, like, get ready for a trip, or maybe a big expense is coming up. But it is something that you should do regularly, but people just don't do it. It's just kind of, it's easy for them to get lost in the mix of things. There's a lot of tools that you can use to help you. So this is just kind of like a short PSA. If you're renting, I would get renters because it covers. It's very cheap. It's $180 a year. It covers valuable property. Maybe it's a computer, maybe it's jewelry, maybe it's a really nice guitar or amplifier or whatever you have. Basically, you pay like $20, $30 a month, and it'll cover whatever your belongings. And yeah, it's pretty useful to have, especially because people don't really think about this if you're not a homeowner, because as a homeowner you need homeowner insurance, but when you're a renter you don't really need it.
there a specific?
I would use if there's a bank that you already use, see if you can go through them because it's kind of nice to have all that stuff in one place. You just Google like renters insurance. That's kind of I would recommend. Yeah.
Oh, you can just go through your insurance company
Yeah.
and get it added on, and it'll just be
whatever.
in addition to.
Car insurance. Car insurance companies are perfect.
Yeah.
You know if insurance is covered different events with items?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things going to this, right? So like California, for example, some people don't cover like earthquakes or like wildfires because they know it happens so frequently. So if you want that kind of coverage, it might cost you more. The different regions like the Midwest, my tornado insurance is a thing because it's a thing there. It's the account for it.
Question. Going back to credit cards, sorry. Is it better to pay off credit cards all at once when it's due or pay the minimum? What's ideal to building a good credit?
Ideally, to build a good credit, you should try to pay off your full balance every month. Because if you're only paying the minimum payment, you're accruing interest and you're paying money to the company so you don't have to pay any longer. If you have the means to pay off your credit card debt, you should do it as fast as possible. I can talk about, I'll go into about how to effectively pay off debt kind of in a little bit. Okay. So here's a general rule of thumb when it comes to budgeting. There's a lot of different philosophies out there, but generally speaking, 50% should be your fixed needs. So that's like rent, mortgage payment, your car payment, whatever it might be. Paying yourself, this is kind of what basically like your savings, like maybe you're saving for a trip, maybe you're saving for a new laptop or whatever. It's really for that. And then discretionary ones is kind of like things that you want to spend money on day to day, like you want to go out, you want to have a drink, you want to have dinner, you want to buy a new gizmo. That's kind of what discretionary one is. And so somewhere along the line, because we are Catholic, and I'm teaching this class in a Catholic setting, somewhere along from this 50, 20, 30, you should pull out 10%. It could be maybe 10%. Maybe you have a low mortgage, maybe you can pull 10% out of your fixed needs and make that 10% of what you give. And it's not easy, and personally, I don't do the full 10% as I should, but you should strive for that as much as you can. Leave 10% out of these three things, so that you can give back to the church and your community and people around you. So this is kind of just I'm not going to go over how to budget because everyone has individual circumstances. There's 1,000 apps out there. I can't just send you a spreadsheet because you probably won't use it, to be honest. Maybe an app is more effective for you. And the spreadsheets aren't obviously good because they don't account for everything that you might spend money on. A lot of them are not going to have like Netflix or like, they're not going to know how much, whatever you spend money on routinely. So this is just kind of like a general breakdown of what you should consider. Your 401k, health insurance, dental vision, transportation, car payment, whatever it might be. This is generally what a budget should look like. And I only show you this because if you're not going to do this regularly, you should do it once. Because really, then you know how much money that you're going to have. Because at the end of the day, you want to know how much cash flow you have remaining after you pay off those fixed needs, and then pay yourself, as in like your emergency fund, maybe you have student loans, personal investments, a travel fund that you might want to build up for a trip. Those are things. After that, that's how much that you have to spend every 2 weeks or however often you get your paycheck. And really, that's what your budget should be realistically in practice, right? Because you're not going to go and do this like homework every single week and like figure out like and type this in. Most people don't do that, don't have the time, or just simply don't want to do that. And so realistically, you should just do this once. And if you want a spreadsheet, if you can't find one that's helpful, you can email me and I can send you one. But really just need to do it once. If you have a partner, you need to do it once. If you just got married, you should do it once. You know, if you're combining your bank account with someone else, maybe your parents or something, you should do it once, just so you know how much money you have at the end of the day to spend on the things that you want to spend your money on. So here's some considerations. One of your large expenses will be rent. Rent right now is crazy. The housing market is kind of crazy. I just heard on the news that it's slightly taking a turn, but probably not. People talk about like, oh, the housing market's gonna crash soon and stuff, but the housing market crashed for a very specific reason, and a lot of those problems that caused the housing market crash don't exist right now. So you can't bank on just what happened in the past is gonna happen in the future. It's just not how it works. Obviously, a lot of other expenses can be minimized if you have roommates. If you live with your parents, if you have roommates. Student loans have a grace period. You guys know that.
How long is the grace period?
It's 6 months usually. It's when after you graduate, so you should be paying a year longer than that. And then having a buffer is really important when you're planning your budget out. You should really plan to have a buffer because you never know when something's gonna happen. Maybe all your tires pop for some reason. You need to spend like $500 on your tires. You should be ready for those expenses. Maybe something tragic happened and you need to spend money on something and you need it now. You don't want to take out a loan because obviously interest rates are crazy right now, and they're only getting higher because the economy is good, and that's just how it works. Interest rates will only increase right now. So yeah, just a little food for thought. So a lot of common obstacles, right, are a lot of these small things like, oh shoot, I saw like, when you go to the supermarket and there's like candy bars or gum, oh, shoot, I want gum right now. Or like maybe you drive by In-N-Out and you want to double. Those are impulse purchases, things that you might not need. So, but it's hard to control, your desires. So yeah, there's a lot of things that you don't account for, right? Maybe you do buy gum like every time you go to the grocery store, and that adds up, very quickly. Maybe you smoke cigarettes, that adds up very quickly. There's a lot of things that you might not account for in your overall budget. Another thing is like the FOMO. All your friends go out and you want to go drink. You don't have to drink, honestly, every single time. You don't have to, but it's hard to overcome these obstacles, right? And then just having, like I said, not having a budget or not updating your budget. I said if you haven't done a budget, you need to do one now. But if you have a significant life event, maybe you got a new job and your income changes, maybe you got married, anything that might significantly change your situation, you should take a look again at your budget because that's going to help set you up for success and really identify how much cash you have at the end of the day that you can spend on yourself and your friends and whatever. So there's a lot of different techniques, right? So some of them, there's a lot of different things to consider. You have to think about short term because obviously there's needs now that we have to pay for something or whatever. You have to think long term too because you have to think about your retirement. You have to. If you have kids, you have to think about how are you going to pay for their school. If you have a significant combined household income, they're probably not going to get really good financial aid. So where are you going to put your money? Are you going to put it in a college savings plan where you can save money on taxes and interest gain? Or are you just going to put in a random savings account? You have to think about these things as you're moving forward. Obviously, none of us have kids, I think, but it's something. It's just a little food for thought. Hopefully, you remember it. There's a lot of tools, right? So, like one of the tools, someone brought up or asked, what kind of tools can we use, whether it's Excel or apps. Mint.com is a really great resource. It's probably the most well-known platform, website, app that you can upload all your credit card accounts, all your checking accounts into one system, and it analyzes how much you spend every single month and how much money it's coming in your checking account. And I'll do that for you pretty seamlessly. That's a kind of more of an automatic method, but another manual method, a very popular one, is to use like an envelope technique. So if you see up here, little envelopes with little things written on the top. So every single week, you don't use your credit card, you don't use your debit card, you just pull out the cash you need for that week, whether it's whether it's gas, how much money you're gonna spend on maybe groceries, or how much money you're gonna spend on going out. And you have an envelope, and you know, like, this is how much money I have, and if I spend any more than this, I don't have it for the rest of the week. So if I use all of my money for going out from that envelope, I can't go out again because I don't have any more cash remaining in the envelope. And that's if you're having a tough time and struggling with like the psychological battle of spending your money like just frivolously, like constantly, that is a very effective way of kind of budgeting and going through. And it's also, I've seen it work really well for couples too. So for someone who asks, how do we implement a budget with a couple? Maybe you start with cash, and maybe you pull out the cash that you guys are both allocated for the week. However you guys want to do that, and then maybe that's what works for you. But you really do have to experiment, compromise, and just agree on something. And yeah, form factor is tough, right? You can use cash, debit, credit, but like I said, stray away from credit cards if you have the problem of overspending, and if you're living beyond your means. If you're, falling into the trap of that video where you just can't get past the idea of like, oh, but I have a ton of credit left. I can still buy this and I'll pay it off later. It's just not how it works. So, like I said, the ways to combat decision pitfalls, really things like the envelope technique. It's making automatic payments on your credit cards, making automatic deductions from your checking account, or maybe that's where your direct deposit is from your work. Having automatic deductions go from there to your retirement account, to your savings account, to different bills you might have to pay. It's automatic is you're committed, right? It's hard to change. It's kind of a pain to change. You don't want to go in and change that. It's very effortless. It happens no matter what. If you don't do anything, your checking account, it's like minus $500 for your savings every single month. You can't control that. And it's very effortless, and it's kind of like it's out of sight, out of mind, right? So you make a commitment to, if you want to pay yourself, 20%, make that commitment, and you do it automatically. And at the end of the day, you're going to see what you have in your checking account that you can use. So that helps as well. Once again, have a buffer, because once you make this budget, you might be super confident about you made this huge plan, but anything can happen. Anything can happen. And maybe you have too much FOMO, and you just need to go out this week because you have a lot of stress. So just have a buffer and have a plan. Have a good plan. So things that you can automate, I kind of went over, but definitely having an emergency fund and your savings is something you should automate. All your bills and debt payments you should automate. That's a no-brainer. You should automate those things. Credit report pools, just put a calendar reminder for every 3 months. It's very easy to do on your phone. Everyone has a smartphone these days. Just set a calendar reminder, once every, March 1st every single year for the rest of your life. You're gonna pull your credit report on that date. So, yeah. So there's a lot of apps out there, right? This one's Mint, this one's Wally. I think this is like about your budget or something. There's a lot of apps out there. Here's a little slideshow or a little slide on different apps that are available and the different benefits, what platforms they're available on, and they're all pretty much free, but some of them have like caveats. Maybe they have a premium service that you might have to pay monthly for. Maybe they have a lot of ads and some of them suck. So it's very easy to download like a bunch of apps and just try them out. If you don't like it, you don't like it. If you like it, then you can use it. It's pretty simple. There's a lot of cool things nowadays. Like you can scan your receipt and it'll plug in like that expense to your budget. So.
Is that by chance like a rating at the top is the best and the bottom is the worst?
No, there's no rhyme or reason to the order of it. But like I said, Mint is definitely the most tried and true and popular one. So I would start with Mint. If you have no idea where to start with Mint. If you don't like it, then you can kind of scan your app store to find something that you like.
Question: how much money should be in our emergency fund?
That's a great question. So in your emergency fund, you should have, if you don't have one at all, start by just try to save for 1,000 and make that be the goal. Once you hit that initial goal and you feel good about it, you're confident you can keep building it up. You should save 3 to 6 months of whatever you need to survive if you lose your job. If you're married, then if both of you lose your job, you should have 3 to 6 months of what will carry you, for during that time period without a job or whatever.
Do you put that emergency fund in your savings account or make a different?
So you don't, yeah. So the question was, where do you put that emergency fund? It really depends on your personality, right? You can keep it in your savings, but you have to realize that just mentally keep track of, hey, maybe you have 10,000 in your savings. You have to mentally keep track of 6,000 of that is my emergency. I can't spend more than where my balance goes less than 6,000 because that's my emergency fund. Maybe it's maybe you create another savings account within your whatever bank you have or a different account. It could be anything, whatever you need. If you could do cash if you wanted to, but that's you're risking cash just floating around your house or whatever. But that is put anywhere.
Can you have multiple checking accounts?
Yes. You can have multiple checking.
That's
Long-term savings accounts. There's a 5-year program. Some people decide to should include that support for expense
That's a pay yourself type of thing. So the question was, is if you're trying to make a long-term savings of like $30,000, is it and you're making those automatic deductions maybe? Is that a fixed need or is it a pay yourself kind of part of your budget? It really is a pay yourself part of the budget because you're obviously saving that money for something in the long term. It's a pay yourself. But like I said, a fixed need is more like is the things that you have to pay or like you're gonna get in trouble basically.
One more question. What are your opinions? Is your opinion on keeping your emergency fund in a Roth IRA?
I do not if that's what it comes down to, that's what it comes down to. I don't recommend taking money out or banking on your Roth IRA being your emergency savings because the Roth IRA is a huge asset that the government has given you when it comes to tax benefits. That let's say the worst happens, you need to pull that $6,000 or $12,000 out of your Roth IRA. You might be penalized for that because maybe it's more than what you originally contributed, or you just lose a lot on basically tax benefits in the long run. If you can do both, then you should do both. That's kind of the general thought. You should only pull out your Roth IRA like literally like this is your last remaining thing going for you.
What is it around?
I'll actually go over a Roth IRA soon. All right, so those are all the app considerations. I'm going to skip through this slide because a lot more slides left. It's kind of just like the hierarchy of needs, right? I think we've all heard of like Maslow's hierarchy. Like, what do you need to survive? When it comes to finance, this is kind of what you should do. Generally speaking, when it comes to your needs, you should have an emergency fund because at the end of the day, like emergencies happen, you need it. I'll talk a little bit more on this later, but if your employer matches your 401k contribution, that is something you should absolutely do. You should contribute enough so that if your employer is going to match $500 of your contribution, you should contribute $500, but that's $500 you're getting that the employer otherwise might not give you. It's basically 100% gain, in an instant every paycheck. However, your retirement, your high interest debt, health savings, I don't think most people worry about, but then your down payment, maybe you want to save for a down payment on a house, and your maybe education and travel, and then other kind of like these are at the bottom. These are things you need to do at the end of the day, especially emergency fund and high interest debt, retirement, and mortgage. I'll cover those kind of in more detail. So here's some quick tips. Yeah, plan ahead. Like I said, budget, create an emergency fund, give yourself flexibility. Don't over plan, over budget. If you go like all out on this and like you spend spend all your energy on this, the next day you're not going to want to do this again. So don't go crazy with this. Just be consistent, like be chill about it, and just do enough so that you're kind of comfortable and you know what's going on when it comes to your finances. And then don't copy your friend and don't listen to other people that are even me. Take everything you hear from me with a grain of salt. I'm not a professional. I'm just someone like you, like I said earlier. Take everything with a grain of salt from, especially from your friends who are like, oh, I invested in this stock and like blah blah. Like, dude, they're probably BSing, to be honest. So don't even listen to them. Just worry about your own priorities, your goals and needs. Everyone has different circumstances, whether it's family, your significant other, or whatever. Don't listen to your friends, generally speaking, when it comes to your finances. Because it's like, I had a friend who came up to me like, oh man, my friend told me like, if I invest with this dad, I'm gonna get 100% of my investment back. I'm like, there's no way. If that was possible, then everyone would be following that guy and doing that. There's no, if it sounds too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true, so don't do it. So why does budgeting matter, right? We often hear like, even in church, we often hear something, even a homily, like income is not related to our happiness, right? But however, on the flip side of that, a big predictor of happiness really can be measured by how much money that you're struggling with, or how much debt you might have and you're struggling to pay. People who are struggling to pay their bills, who are struggling with debt, are typically unhappy because money is a big stressor when it comes to individuals and relationships, and it really strains that. So I do really encourage you to budget first. Create an emergency savings, create a savings, do an employer match before you do anything else. Before you even think about investing your money in a stock or a mutual fund or whatever. So it's been about 40 minutes. Does anyone need a break? All right, cool. I'm just gonna push. So this is kind of what's exciting for me. This is kind of why I got into personal finance, because you can make a ton of money by just being consistent and just doing the bare minimum. And it's pretty shocking how much money you can make in the long run. I can kind of go through that. So here's the secret to investing, right? It's not a very big secret. It's be average. That's all you need to do. If you're average when it comes to investing, you will do very well for yourself, and you'll do better than most people. And I'll go into more detail about what does it mean to be average. So a small bet was made, right? This happened just this year, actually. The bet wrapped up this year. So a bet of $1 million was made between Warren Buffett and Protege Partners, which is a hedge fund. I don't know if you guys watch Billions on Showtime or whatever, but hedge fund is basically a bunch of people that invest a ton of money for a lot of like maybe institutions or really wealthy people. But hedge fund people like make a ton of money and they're ballers. Like they're playing with millions of dollars, right? And so they're trying to beat the stock market every single year. They're trying to beat the stock market, and they're really intelligent people. And he made a bet that the S&P 500, which is just if you ever like look at the markets news, you see all those numbers. S&P 500 is just made up of the largest 500 companies in the United States, and it's an index of that. And he said, no matter how much effort you put into trying to beat the S&P 500, you're just not going to beat it. You're not going to do better than that. And I don't know if you knew, but he actually won this bet, and so Protege Partners had to pay up and donate $1 million to charity or whatever. But here's kind of something kind of crazy, right? So over from 2008 to 2017, these were all the funds that Protege Partners managed, right? And they only gained on average 3.6. This one was pretty good, 6.5%. But the S&P index fund, which is very passive, it is what it is, right? You don't touch it, like it's not anything crazy. It did 8.5%. It did way better than all these other funds that maybe X number of billionaires put money into. Maybe this is a pension fund or something that invested into that. But it just does better. That's why I'm saying being average is better than trying to beat the market. So here's a what if, right? Let's say you buy an Apple Watch instead of putting it into your retirement account. What does that mean for your retirement, right? What do you, I mean, you know, maybe does anyone have a ballpark of what that might mean 40 years from now?
$10,000, $200,000.
All right, you lose $7,400 in retirement, right? It's a pretty steep number, right? And this is the assumption that you're gonna pull money from this retirement, from this investment, 40 years, which I think is a pretty safe bet. We're all like in our mid-20s. Some of us closer to 30, I guess. But I'm just assuming that at 8% interest. And some people will argue that 8% is pretty safe. Some people say 12% is what you'll get if you make your portfolio correct. So this is a pretty conservative estimate of $7,000 that you lose if you just want to buy an Apple Watch like this one right here. So I lost this in retirement. But here's a bigger what if, right? Let's say, what if you buy a brand new Elantra instead of a used Elantra, right? What does that add up to? What do you guys think? 100,000? So you lose $238,000 every time using that same math that I kind of talked about before, assuming that it's 40 years that you pull out your money and assuming 8% interest in your retirement account. That's pretty significant, right? And this is just one purchase that you might have made in your life.
I have a question. The 17K actually.
This is about the average. This is the starting price for a 2018 Elantra, and this is the current used price. Oh, sorry, this is a 2013 Elantra. That was a typo. So if you bought a used 2013 Elantra. Yeah.
Are you gonna go over what it means to invest in your retirement?
Yes.
Okay.
This is just kind of to pique your interest, right? This is what got me interested, right? Because someone told me once that if I put in $400 a month, you know, for 40 years, that adds up to around $200,000, right? How much you put into your, let's say, a retirement account. If you assume that this kind of 8% interest, that accrues up to $1.3 million, even though you only put in $200,000. Think about it. So $400 a month is steep, and it's hard to do that, and it's hard to make money for that. But when you're making a dual income, you're making an income. I think it's very doable that you can save $400 a month. That's like 8 trips to Donko, right? It really is. It's not anything crazy, or like it's like eight trips to the bar, or like whatever. It's not that crazy. If you just gut it out for a little bit, you can save $400 a month pretty easily. All right, I'm gonna skip this video because I don't think people like Seinfeld. So. Oh really?
Again with the ketchup, what they have in the plastic squeeze containers? Sharon, hello! Comment on the ketchup box. Yeah, me too. Hello, Jerry. Hi, Ann. Want to give a kiss on the mouth? Yes, of course.
Well, here's the bottle.
No, put it down again.
You should let Buddy open it.
Buddy, he lived next door to us 45 years ago.
Leo, did you give that one the $50?
What $50?
Your father won $1,000 at the track last week, and he gave you $100, and you were supposed to give $50 to your sister.
Dad died in 1962. Believe me, I owe you another $50. Well, hi, Mom. Yeah, I was at Nana's yesterday. I had to help her open that ketchup bottle. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you remember when you were a kid, your father winning like $1,000 at the track? Really? Did you know he gave Uncle Leo $100 and he was supposed to give you $50? How do I know? Because Nana doesn't know what year it is and she thinks this just happened. Well, I think you should. Okay, fine. You know what the interest on that $50 comes to in 53 years? $663.45. And that's figuring in cyclically at 5% interest over 53 years compounded quarterly. Or if you put it into a 10-year T-bill, will you stop it? Well, he's not getting away with this. My mom. So was he paying you? Well, he said no. He said we have no proof. No proof? We'll get him. He's a crook. Sooner or later he'll slip up. Anyway, I want you to go check on Nana at the home. Okay, well. Do you realize an above average performing mutual fund?
She's upstairs playing cards.
You know, she really doesn't belong here. My uncle put her here because he's trying to prove he doesn't owe my mother $50.
Well, she seems very happy. She met an old friend who used to live next door to her.
Bonnie?
Yes, that's his name. He's right over there.
You don't know my name, the tree?
Oh, yeah. He won $1,000. His son was there too.
Lena? Yeah, that's it. Leo!
Oh, why did I knock this little kid? My story box. They're cashing into the deposit.
That's up.
And after your grandfather hit the daily double, he gave him $100 and told him to get 52 assisted. Then his sister, well, I thought you should give it to me for all the property folks.
That's very interesting. Leo, I've just met an old acquaintance of yours, buddy. He just told me quite a story about you and Grandpa and the drag. Yeah, bust.
So you made a big deal about $50, right? Over 50 years, about compounding interest. So just doing the math again, it's around $3,500 that could have been made just from that $50 56 years ago. It's kind of crazy, but it kind of puts things in perspective. How much money you put in now is worth 40, 50 years down the line. And personally, for me, it matters, right? Because a lot of our parents we're first generation Americans, a lot of us, and a lot of our parents don't have any idea what retirement accounts or interest rates or mutual funds. A lot of them don't know, especially if they're just like small business owners and they didn't go to like an amazing school and they're not finance people. So it is really important for us to kind of recognize this now, because time is really your most valuable asset that you have, at this point in your life. Here's a penny for your thoughts, right? How compounding interest works. Kind of went over it in that video, but how do you go from this penny to this many pennies? So I'll just kind of do a very small example of how compounding interest works, right? So let's say you start at day one and you start with 1 penny and you get 100% interest. So you basically double up, at day one. At day 31, if you keep doing that, you end up with 10 million pennies, right? Let's say you start at day 2, you only have half of that. And if you start at day 10, you have way less than that. So that kind of just puts into perspective, because 31 is not a big number, right? We have a lot of years till retirement. Obviously, it's not going to be as drastic as 100% interest, but it does matter. Like a delay of 10 years, a delay of 5 years, does make a huge difference in how your retirement account is going to look down the line, or investment account, or whatever it might be. So the first takeaway from kind of this investing portion is to start saving early and save consistently. Do it, this kind of that pay yourself part of your budget. Do it consistently. And when I talk about retirement, what do I mean by how to invest or whatnot? There's a lot of ways to invest out there, and there's a lot of options that you can do. So the most common employer-sponsored options ones are like 401k, Roth 401k, 403b. Maybe it's employer stock, or you could do it yourself. If your employer, or maybe they don't offer retirement for you, then you can, or they might, you can still set up an individual retirement account, or IRA, or a Roth IRA, or what's called a SEP IRA, or a self-employed. So maybe you have your own business, so you can start that as well. Or maybe you just do your own 401k. Those are all options for you. I'll kind of go into detail about, really the biggest takeaway that you should gain from this is what's the difference between a traditional 401k or Roth, or traditional versus a Roth IRA, or traditional versus a Roth 401k. So basically, this is kind of a small table about the main ones that people participate in. So the contribution limit for a Roth 401k is $18,500. For IRA, it's only $5,500. That's why it's important to start now, because you can't put a lot of money into it, because the government knows that it's a huge deal. Like you're not gonna be able to take that much money away from you when it comes to taxes to participate in the IRA or Roth IRA, specifically the Roth IRA. And the biggest difference between a Roth and just a regular account is that one is pre-tax and one is post-tax. So when I talk about pre-tax, obviously when you get your paycheck at the end of the year, you owe a certain percent goes to the government, right? Social Security, Medicare, whatever. Depends on what income bracket you're in, right? So if you contribute to a traditional 401k or a traditional IRA, basically that money that you put in, you can deduct from your taxes that year. So let's say you made $20,000 and you put in $5,000. The government's going to pretend that you only made $15,000 for that year. That's what the traditional does. But on the tail end of that, whatever interest you gain on that $5,000 investment, they're going to tax you on whatever interest you gain when you pull out that money. So they're going to tax you later. So basically, you're trying to save money now versus later. And obviously, there's different circumstances. Let's say, for example, like you're much older, you're closer to retirement. You probably want to put into your 401k traditional, because you can deduct that as a tax now, and you're going to save more money by deducting now. I'll kind of go into the numbers later. The Roth IRA, on the other hand, you're going to, even if you put in $5,000 into your Roth IRA or your Roth 401k, the government's going to still, using the same figures of $20,000, and you put in $5,000 into your Roth IRA, the government's still going to tax you on the front end for $20,000. They're not going to give you anything for that. But on the later end, when you pull out your money, they're going to tax you. They're not going to tax you on your interest gain. So you pay your taxes on the front end. I'm going to show you the math of that and how that adds up. So like I said, this is kind of a summary of what I just kind of went over. Does anyone have any questions on this before I move on? Because this is kind of like a sort of an important concept.
So wouldn't it make sense to pay your taxes now? Because if they're going to tax you later with the interest, you'd be paying a lot more tax.
No, not necessarily, because if you, let's say you only, because when you do your Roth IRA, they're only going to tax you on your, they won't, sorry, what was the question?
If you do pre-tax,
yeah,
and that means the government will tax you later on when you take it out, they're going to tax the interest that you built up.
Yeah, only the interest. They're not going to tax you on what you put in.
But isn't the interest where the money builds?
Yeah, so, but let's say you're closer to pulling out that money, maybe that interest is going to be smaller than the amount you put in. So there's different situations. But safely speaking, like the Roth for youth, for people in their mid-20s, the Roth is probably your best bet. Unless you really need the money. Now,
it's like if you save early, so that you have a lot of money to retire, better to get taxed now versus later.
Yeah, it's typically better to get taxed now on your portion now, because later, like I was saying, like your interest is going to build a lot over 4 years. But if you only have 5 years before you're going to pull out, that interest might be really tiny, so it might not be a big deal.
So this is the rule, like a general rule to invest in the Roth IRA first, and then as you were saying, also pulling out.
Yeah.
See the interest rate where you're at, and then make decisions.
Yeah, yeah. So if you can't do that math on your own, that's when you should seek like a professional help you do that math. It can be pretty straightforward. But there is some point in your life that it is going to make sense to make that switch, but it's not going to be for a really long time. So this is kind of how your income tax works, right? So you get your gross income, there's some adjustments, this might be your IRA contribution, you get your adjusted gross income, you might have some deductions, some personal expenses, taxable income. So just kind of showing you, how this math works out, right? So let's say you contribute to $10,000 to your IRA. You save $1,500 in taxes now because they're going to save. You can basically deduct $10,000, and we're just assuming that you're saving 15% of that tax of $10,000. So you're going to get $1,500 back on your tax return for your contribution now. But you're going to end up paying 31K tax later, and that's assuming that 40 years and the 8% interest. That's pretty crazy, right? But if for a Roth IRA, you just pay $1,500 now, you're going to save that 31K later because you're going to pull out and not have to worry about paying taxes. So that's kind of the very simple math behind an IRA versus a Roth IRA, or 401K versus Roth 401K.
So you're saying you can switch over to a Roth IRA later?
A Roth 401K, or you can open any of these accounts at any time. Yeah.
People switch back and forth.
I don't know if people do.
I think there's tax implications when you switch between, if you're trying to switch between an IRA to a convert accounts from an IRA to a Roth IRA, there's going to have tax. One's pre-tax and one's post-tax. Usually you want to keep those separate.
Oh yeah, so what you can do is you can open a separate, what's it called? If you have a Roth IRA, you can open up just a regular traditional IRA, but that same money won't be in the other bucket, so to speak. You can open those separately and not worry about anything else.
So you can have multiple?
You can have a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA. But you can't go over $500. Also, you want to start now because, in the long run, you want to be a baller, right? There's income. So if you make more than like $132,000, you're not allowed to contribute to your Roth IRA anymore. You need to just open up a regular taxable investment account. Because at that point, the government thinks you have enough money, you don't need tax benefits. So that's just some food for thought as well.
One person is asking, what are the penalties involved in the different accounts? I think penalties for pulling.
For pulling out? Honestly, who asked that question? I will account message him later because I'm not 100% sure on what the penalties are. But you're gonna have to pay fees. I don't know exactly how much it is, but it's not comfortable. Let's say.
You're gonna look up about our 401k
65.5.
No, but I heard you can use it with your 5 accounts.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I don't recommend you do this, but there are certain life events that might happen where you can pull out from your retirement accounts without paying a fee or paying a lot of taxes. I can send out a list with this PowerPoint, but some of them might be like a big expense, like your first down payment on your first house. Maybe you have a large medical expense. It can be like someone asked before, your last resort emergency fund. But keep in mind that once you do that, there's a time period where you can put money back into it, but you're losing out on all the gain that you made over so many years. And if you think about how important time is when it comes to investments, you're going to lose out on that. So that's really, I would try your very best to keep your IRA, your retirement accounts, 401k, completely separate from all the other things that are going in your life. That's just my own personal thoughts. You don't have to follow that.
What's the difference between 401k and IRA? And should they have both?
You can have both. So I would say general rule of thumb is try to save 15% of your income and towards your retirement. If that's all in your 401k, that's fine. But maybe your employer's 401k sucks. Maybe you want to open up your other individual accounts. So 401k is employer sponsored, but a Roth, either IRA or a Roth IRA are self. You can just open that up yourself. You don't need an employer to sponsor you or anything. So you can have both. So it really depends on your individual situation. I generally encourage if you can max out your Roth IRA, you should do it.
You also said that you had 100,000.
Over 132,000, like over 132,000. 132,000, I think, for single filers, and like it's like 180 for couples. Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. Maybe someone can look it up. Hmm? Any questions about this? All right, so kind of to Roth or not. So I think we went over this. IRA basically it gives you additional money on the front end. Say like $1,500 now. You can have that in your pocket. It's very quick. But if you're patient and you can budget effectively, the Roth IRA is typically the way to go because obviously your income is probably going to be higher in the future, right? So you might not be able to contribute to it. Or maybe your income is higher and you're going to have higher tax. You're going to be in a higher tax bracket. So you're going to have to pay it. Not only are you going to have to pay taxes on more money because of the interest gain, you might have to pay, from a 15% tax bracket to like a 25% tax bracket. It just, you never know. So it just gives you a lot more flexibility. I don't think, and for the Roth IRA, whatever your contributions you made, I think like you can, that's excluding the interest that's gained from, that's in that account. But just like, let's say you put $100, you made $2 in interest, you can put $100 with that. Yeah, and like I said, it could just shield you from a lot of other tax problems down the road. Tax laws are crazy. This is a fun little comment. I invested in a Roth IRA and all I got was. So I mentioned employer match. Even if your 401k sucks and you don't have that much money and you have credit card debt, do enough. If your company offers employer match, do enough to get that match every single time. There's almost no situation where you wouldn't try to start for that employer match. And if you don't know what an employer match is, it's basically, let's say your company sponsors a 401k. If you pay $500, maybe the company will match $500, or maybe they just match $250. But there's usually a limit, so they might only match 5% of your paycheck, or maybe they only match $500 a month. There's always a limit. Actually, I don't know a single company that doesn't have a limit.
So if we don't match the 401k plan, is it better to just do the Roth IRA?
Yes and no. Maybe it really depends on convenience for you, right? Maybe it's set up nicely where it seamlessly goes from the direct deposit into your retirement account. You have to worry about all that stuff. But yeah, it really just depends because 401ks are usually sponsored by other companies. Like they let's say you work for, I don't know, let's say you work for Microsoft. The company that manages their 401k is probably not Microsoft, right? It's probably like Charles Schwab or something else. So maybe that company sucks, then maybe you should just put it into your IRA. It really just it depends. But like I said, this employer match is a guaranteed return on your investment. And if you're gonna put in $500 and your employer is gonna give you $500, you should do that because it's basically 100% of what you do. So that's kind of a no-brainer. It's a guaranteed return on your investment. Even if the 401k itself, the platform that you're investing in, is not very good. Yeah, so let's say your 401k does suck, but they do basically a match. You can roll over your 401k into the equivalent of your individual retirement account or a different 401k if you switch employers. So it's just something that you can think about if you're switching jobs or you're debating whether or not to contribute to your 401k. So key takeaway 2, just contribute at least enough for your employer match, very least. So how much you contribute? I mentioned 15% earlier, but you really have to consider first your high interest debt and your values, your priorities, your liabilities, things that are your individual difficult circumstance. At the end of the day, something is better than nothing, but if you have high interest debt, you really need to pay that off first. And when I talk about like 15% total contribution each year, I'm talking about you plus your whatever your employer might match. So I don't think you need to do any more than that. If you do, that's awesome. So how do you get a bucket, right? There's a lot of different companies out there. A very popular one right now is Vanguard. Vanguard is kind of like the pioneer of index mutual funds. Another one is like Fidelity. Another one is Charles Schwab. There's a lot of new startups now too. I don't know where that slide is, but there's a lot of different startups, and I'll go over those as well because I think those are pretty good opportunities for us at least. I kind of went over these quick tips already. So I'm going to quickly go over how do I prioritize, like how should you prioritize debt payments, right? Let's say you have credit card A, $1,000 balance, interest rate of 18%. And credit card B, a $2,000 balance at 25% interest. So if your minimum payment on each card was $100 and you have $500, how would you split up the payments? So yeah, most people will say $100 on credit card A and then $400 on credit card B because of the interest rate, paying off more interest. There's other methods too, right? I encourage that method. If you can figure that math out, do that every single time. And this could be student loan A or B or C or whatever. Pay off your high interest at first and pay minimums on everything else. That is typically the best way to go. Other people, I think like Dave Ramsey is a very popular financial person, like a financial guru. He recommends like that snowball method. So maybe just psychologically, you just can't get past the fact that you owe money on like 1,000 different accounts. So maybe you do pay this off faster. So in 2 months, you only owe money on credit card B. So maybe that feels good and that works for you, and that's how you overcome the psychological barrier of being able to conquer your debt. So that's another way to do it. And, I think Yomi mentioned rolling over your balance to a different credit card. If you can do that, and you have a really great credit card offer, you can do that as well. But it really depends on your individual, I guess your individual psyche and what your ability is to pay off this debt. But there's a lot of methods. But if you can do it, the first one I recommend, like I said, is paying off high interest debt first, the highest interest rate first, and then something else. Other one is the debt snowball method, and then paying off your smallest balances so that it just feels good, pay all the stuff off, and get rid of it.
Let's say I have also understand that, and then would you say it would be better off to pay that off first and not have to payment for contribution related thing, the regular 401k and
Okay, so the question was, how do I balance kind of my payments versus on credit cards, student loans, or whatever, versus my contributions to my retirement account? That's a good question. Some things that you should consider when you're making that debate on how to kind of put your money in these different buckets. The first thing is if you're going to contribute to your retirement account, remember I said 8% is safe. Some people say 12%. It really depends on your investment philosophy and what you think your investment account is going to perform. If that interest rate is higher and better than your retirement account, then maybe let's say your student loan, maybe your student loan only like at 2%, then maybe you should you should pay yourself first and invest a little bit more than you pay off your student loan. Because then in the long run you're going to make more money. On the flip side, let's say your student loan debt is it's hovering around 8%, and your investments they go up and down, so they hover around 8% historically. Maybe you pay that debt off first, because at that point it doesn't matter. And on the other extreme end, let's say you have credit card payments like this at 25%. You're going to have to pay this off first, because at the end of the day, the credit card company is going to beat you on interest versus your individual retirement account, with the exception of that 401k employer match. So do that first, and then pay off your debt. Does that answer your question? Oh, this was actually talked about. This is kind of just a summary of trade-offs. All right, so before you invest in anything, pay off your debt, build up your emergency fund, maximize contribution to your employer retirement plan, and save for other important short-term needs. Once you take care of this, this is the bottom of the hierarchy of needs, right? This is what you need to do when it comes to your financial health and safety. Then you can start thinking about putting money into your Roth IRA and maybe putting a little extra into your 401k. Once you have this is what's going to keep you safe at the end of the day, not baller retirement account. So you kind of have to. This kind of goes hand in hand with budgeting, right? And your overall picture of how you're going to spend your money. You really do have to think short term, mid term, long term. Are you trying to save for a house? Are you, where are you in your life? Do you have kids? Are you going to save for their college? You just have to kind of understand short, mid, and long term. You should really think about that in all aspects of your life, especially financially. So let's say you are good with your, what I talked about in the bottom of the pyramid, your needs, your emergency fund, your debt, your debt's paid off. How do I translate the amount of risk I'm willing to take into different investment choices that I can make? So if you want to, at the very low end of the spectrum, very low risk, obviously the checking account is there, right? Money is just going to be in your checking account. There's no risk of you losing it. On the other end is stocks, right? It's a little riskier. You can lose. The stock market goes up and down, right? You can go up 10% one year, you can drop 40% one year. You just don't know. So that it is a risky investment. In between, you have bonds and then money market funds, and then don't worry about this other. It's like gambling and other stuff that you don't need to worry about. Yeah. Oh, what the other is? Yeah. Really, it is like gambling. Maybe just dumber investment choices people advertise. Does anyone have any questions about what these asset classes mean? No? So I'm just gonna kind of go over, I guess, how the stock market behaves, right? In 1 year, let's say you invest $1,000, 1 year, you gain 53%. That's awesome, right? But sometimes you lose 27%. You don't know, right? Let's say you invest $1,000 in 25 years. You get 11%, or you get 8%. That's pretty good. So in the short term, it can be kind of hard to kind of grasp, right? Because it can be really good, really bad sometimes. But in the long run, it's not that bad. And this is kind of the range of annual returns from 1950 to 1994. So in the 1 year spectrum, it goes from 52 to negative 26.5. In the 5 year time period, the largest range was negative 2.4 to 23.9. And so forth at 25. The long term, it goes from 7.9 to 11.2. And that's pretty good, right? That's pretty safe. In the long term that it's going to be safe. And people talk about stocks being risky and all this stuff. But in a long term, if you think long term, it does play out to be pretty good. And but a lot of people can't grasp this idea, right? We're really short-sighted. So once the market crashes, people are like, I need to pull all my money out. But you're going to miss out on all this other greed. So you really just can't time the market. People don't know. It's crazy. So kind of getting tactical on investing, what should you invest in? How do you invest it? How do you choose a fund, right? Let's say you open a Vanguard account. How do you choose one of the thousands of funds or ETFs or out there? Or maybe, how do you choose a stock? Don't choose a stock, but I'll go into that a little bit more. And what kinds of resources are out there that can kind of give you more information beyond what I can give you here in this short class? So what you should invest in is mutual funds. Bottom line is kind of like the safest way to go. And these mutual funds are offered by companies like Vanguard, T. Rowe Price, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, USAA. And why you invest in mutual funds is because it provides automatic diversification, because you don't know how an individual company is going to do. Maybe you invested a ton of money into Enron, and it's like that was a huge scandal, and then it just goes to zero. But you're putting all your eggs in one basket. What a mutual fund does is it exposes you to a variety of stocks, whether it's in the U.S., international, or whatever. It's going to say usually in the name of the mutual fund what it invests in. They offer convenience, right? You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to trade individual stocks, and it's lower cost. You don't have to pay fees every time you trade a stock. There's usually a fee attached to it.
Well, I think the mutual fund does have a cost.
It does. So I'll go over the fees as well. So this is a little quote from Morningstar, which is a ratings company, and it's kind of like the most reputable one, I guess. So they said if there's anything in the whole world of mutual funds that you can take to the bank, it's that expense ratios can help you make a better decision. In every single time period and data point tested, low-cost funds beat high-cost funds. And this is kind of what Chairman was like alluding to when it comes to the cost of mutual funds, because there is a management fee associated to these mutual funds. Like someone's got to get paid to manage a mutual fund, right? And it's like, so following a mutual fund is like, predicting which ones are going to be the best is like flipping a coin, right? These are all actively managed funds. Just an estimate. So from 2010 to 2014, just starting like 2,862 different funds and fund managers. It's just tracking their performance. Basically, every single year, this is how many is left of people who beat the market every single year. Of all those funds, only 2 people beat the stock market over this period. So people just don't know how the stock market's going to behave. That's the bottom line.
So the average always wins.
So the average always wins. And we talked about the fees, right? And we usually refer to it in basis points. Each basis point is 100th of a percent. So 33 basis points is 0.33%. 169 basis points is 1.69%. And that's kind of like, let's say, for $10,000 of management, or they're managing $10,000 of your money, they're going to take 0.33% of your gains, basically. But let's say over 10%. So we're going to compare 2 different expense ratios, right? We're going to assume 10% average over 25 years. Same investment, same vehicle, same returns. Having a 33 basis point versus 169 basis point makes a difference of $30,000, and that's really just it's a 1.3% difference, which 1.3% doesn't seem like a lot, but it like compounding interest, it adds up. It's pretty remarkable how much it affects your overall investment value. So when you're looking for a mutual fund, you should strive to find the lowest fees possible. And okay, so like basically speaking, when you're looking at mutual funds, you should look for what's called passively managed index funds. And that just means that they're going to follow the stock market to the best of their ability. They're not going to try anything to beat the market. So there's like certain funds out there where like there's like a tech fund, and they're going to invest in like the tech companies like Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google. But that portfolio isn't as diversified, and it's usually tied to having a higher expense ratio. So you just passively managed funds are the way to go. Actively managed funds, like I said, is someone trying to beat the market in some way. They have a unique investment theory that they think they can do better than their peer group.
So these management funds, you can't negotiate to change fees, right? Of the management fees, let's say. So they're just set. So you just need to search for a management fund that is decent to good, right?
Mutual fund?
Yeah.
You're talking about mutual fund, right?
Right.
Yeah, you can negotiate. The product is the product, and the expense ratio, the expense fee is tied to that product. Each fund has its own ratio. If you're talking about negotiating, you're like a trillionaire. That's when you can talk about like negotiating like fees and stuff.
So it's just a matter of being able to find the right.
It is, yes. If you search low cost passive mutual funds on Google, huge list. Vanguard is probably the most popular one, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the startups that can help you out too. So another kind of big topic that you need to think about when you're looking at investments is, you know, I showed you that spectrum of that risk, right? You know, on one end was checking, it was bonds, money market, and then it was stocks, right? So as you get older, you want us to assume less risk. So as you grow older, you want to shift your portfolio so that it has more bonds, more in your checking than there are stocks. Some people use this rule of thumb where like do 110 minus your age or 120 minus your age. So let's say you're 30 years old. So you do 120 minus 30. You want 90% of your portfolio in stocks and then 10% in bonds. So it really just depends on how much risk you're willing to take. That's a very just, you know, easy rule of thumb that you can use, but you don't really need to use it. I go into why. But overall, the closer you are to needing the money that you invest, the more should be weighted towards the safer things like bonds, checking account, and then money market. So this is kind of like a visual of how your allocation should change over time, where the blue is stocks and the gray is bonds. So as you get closer to retirement, you shift towards more gray. And then when you're younger, now you should, if you're in your mid-20s, you should almost get 100% stocks if you can tolerate that amount of risk. And there's no right answer to your portfolio, right? These are all different portfolio, like very reputable sources of how to balance your portfolio, because I talked about these passively managed funds. They all have different theories and stuff and different goals. Some of them might invest in U.S. companies, some of them might invest in international companies, some of them might be real estate, but there's a lot of different philosophies. How to pick a fund? Well, if you want to take a snapshot, this is kind of a good thing to take a screenshot of. A good place to start is like this Money 50 list. Look at best funds. We're going to start rating another one. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing to look at is expenses. You know, how long has that fund manager been there? You know, what is their, you know, why are they there? You know, are they there for the company? Are they there because they want to make you money? Or are they there because they want to make themselves a lot of money and their company a lot of money? So when you're looking at investments, remember this one word, fiduciary. And what that means is someone is legally obligated to act in your best interest when it comes to your finances. Just this year, Obama passed something in his time where people who manage retirement accounts and pension plans had to act as a fiduciary, but that was just repealed a couple months ago because it's hard to enforce, and also Trump's president, so whatever. So just remember this word, because if you run into a financial advisor, ask them, are you a fiduciary? Are you legally obligated to act in my best interest? Because a lot of people are not. How do they make their money? Like, how are they going to make money from you? Are they just managing it? Are they just going to take a cut of your portfolio? Are they going to take a cut of how much money you make? Those are great questions to ask. Another alternative, a very popular alternative for us, I think, is what's called robo-advisors. And there's a lot of startups now. You probably see ads for this on TV, podcasts, or whatever. But Vanguard and Charles Schwab has it too. But Betterment and Wealthfront are the two leading robo-advisors, where they just do almost everything for you when it comes to your retirement. They're going to manage your portfolio. They're going to invest your money for you, and they're going to do it in the lowest fees possible. They're going to use Vanguard, like companies like Betterment and Wealthfront will use Vanguard mutual funds. So you have a low expense ratio. So you don't have to do it yourself. You don't have to. Remember I showed you that like chart of like this? Like, do you really want to do this by yourself? Like every year, and you want to do this by yourself? Probably not, right? This is probably unrealistic. A robo-advisor is probably the cheapest way that you're going to get it done. And I really, if you don't want to think about finance and investing, just do a little bit of research on robo-advisors like Wealthfront and Betterment, or even Vanguard, and I think it'll open your eyes. So here's the takeaway slide again, right? So here's the wrap up. Hopefully this is something that you can take away from this class. No one cares about your money more than you do, so really take heart of it. No one's going to care more about your own checking account because no one sees it except for you, unless you're married. Then you have something else to worry about. Be aware of how you spend your money, right? Make that budget, make that initial budget, and then make changes as you need to if you have a significant life event. Third, your most important asset is time. I think I showed you guys what the importance of time value of money and how it affects your investments. If you lose 10 years, you're going to lose a lot of time. Each year is crucial when it comes to investing money. Before you invest, make sure you save. Have that emergency fund first. Make sure if you're planning to buy a house, make sure you have a good balance and you know what you're doing when it comes to how you're spending your money, allocating money to different parts of your buckets. Focus on fees. Whenever you're looking at, whether you're looking at robo-advisors, maybe you want to manage your own portfolio, you want to buy your own mutual funds, focus on the fees. That is what's going to make you money in the long run, not how well they perform in the past. Because past performance is not a predictor of future performance. Every stock investment professional will tell you that. Because if you buy individual stocks, think about it this way: each person engaging in that transaction thinks they won, but someone lost, right? If you buy a stock, that means someone sold it for a reason because they think the stock's gonna go down. Does that make sense? There's a winner and a loser in every transaction. So just think about it that way. So match your investments to your time horizon, and your risk tolerance. So be aware of where you're putting your money into, at what time in your life, depending on your situation, how much debt you might have. Take all advice with a grain of salt, including mine. At the end of the day, you are responsible for your finances. Try your best to act in your own interest, because no one is going to act in your best interest more or less than yourself. And if you need a financial advisor, ask them: are you a fiduciary? Are you legally obligated to act in my best interest? Because a lot of people aren't, and a lot of people aren't obligated to be fiduciaries now. A lot of companies are still holding themselves to that standard, but a lot of these small mom and pop investment shops that you might see in the corner, they're not legally obligated to act in your best interest. They need to make a living, right? So they're going to do it some way, and it might be at your cost. And finally, automate as much as you can when it comes to your finances. Add a sight and a mind. If you have these investment accounts set up, you have bills that you can automate, make sure that they're happening automatically. That way that at the end of the day, you know how much money you're expecting that you can spend.
Question. Do you have any recommendations on books to read or podcasts to listen to?
I don't. There's a lot. It depends on your investment goals. If you're trying to pick your stocks and do whatever, The Intelligent Investor is a great book. For podcasts, Freakonomics is interesting. Dave Ramsey podcast. I don't believe in all of his investment philosophies, but a lot of his ideas are very, very sound and practical, and it's pretty engaging. A lot of other books. If you really want to find a book, you can, but most of the resources are out there that you can find yourself. A good website to look into if you want to invest passively and you kind of want to do it yourself and save as much as you possibly can on those fees, because at the end of the day, if you do it yourself and you're confident in it, you're going to make the most money that way. You can go on a website like Boggleheads, which is it's a forum where it's obsessives of a company that made Vanguard. Jack Bogle was the person who made Vanguard, and he kind of changed the investing landscape. And it's a bunch of these nerds that kind of have these ideas on how to best manage your portfolio. And if you post on that forum, 1,000 people will comment on how to best, to act in your situation. And then if you really don't trust, the people around you to give you good advice, those people will actually give you pretty good advice. Pretty surprisingly, people will ask specific questions. It's I'm about to start school. or I have this much student debt. You know, how much should I invest in this bank? And how much should I invest in this, you know, place? People go very in depth in there, obviously because it's anonymous and you can ask, you know, kind of privately, so to speak. So that is kind of a popular place to look. And I think there's a book associated with Bogleheads too, and a pretty thorough Wikipedia page if you don't want to buy a book.
Bogleheads?
Bogleheads, so it's BOGLEHEADS.com. Super nerdy because it's some guy's last name was heads. So, but it's also like a ghetto looking forum. It's not like Reddit or anything, but it's alright. It's alright. You can even go on Reddit if you really want. It's crazy. People will give you their opinion. Anything else? I hope this was helpful. I hope at the very least you took away these things and that you can understand at least a little bit more what these concepts are. So,
how do you budget?
How do I budget? I have to rebudget now, right? Because I've been living on my own for the past 5 years. So I made that initial budget of like where my expenses would be, and I knew how much I needed to put in my savings, how much I needed to do in this. So I made those automatic deductions, and then I knew how much money I could spend every single month. I kind of play money now. So I personally, I would just use my credit card because I knew the points, I can rack it up, but at the end of the month, I can pay it off every single time.
Now you're getting married.
Now I'm getting married, so we've had.
I'm making the money.
Any other questions?
So in the case, let's say like, you know, you're working and you have a set amount of income. Let's say you get a lot of bonus, right? Let's say something happens to you. Get a lot of extra cash, right? Where should you?
If you just run into a big bonus, no, let's say that's not large. Let's say it's not large. If you have, it still follows kind of that pyramid, right? If you have high interest debt, pay that off first. Okay. If you haven't maxed out your retirement contributions, maybe you should put some in there. And you kind of treat it like your regular budget, right? And then maybe you pay yourself a little bit. Maybe you have some discretionary fund of that available too. Using the budget rule is kind of a good rule of thumb as well. Anything else? I know it was a long class, but thank you for your time. Great.
For those who are watching online, we will be sending the PowerPoint, and this video will be available on YouTube.
Oh, sorry. Here's this general disclaimer. I'm not going to read it to you, but I don't want to give you guys bad advice and get in trouble. You can't blame me for this if you make an investment and you're like, you told me to do this. No, it's bad. It's not my fault, okay?
Thank you.
People get sued for this kind of stuff.